Welcome, everybody. Feel free to just join and hang out. We are going to get started in just a second with a dance, but let's let everyone join in. I always start my Embody Astrology sessions with a dance. So I'm going to go ahead and share my audio so that we can dance it out, and then we'll hop right into our webinar for today. Who would have thought that astrology and dancing go hand in hand? That's what you get in the world of Jacqui Mancuso. Welcome, everybody. If you may, please mute all of your mics just so that we don't have any background noise. We'll have a time towards the end for you all to ask some questions. So I'm just going to hop right in because that's how I do. And we're going to talk about why are we here? What is there to expect today? So this is my webinar, how to find a planet or point in your natal chart. So we're going to start off first with an introduction to the Zodiac Wheel. What the heck is this circle thing that we keep looking at? Then we're going to talk about the natal planets in your Zodiac Wheel. What was where when you were born? Then we'll talk about the transiting planets. These are the planets that are moving in our day-to-day lives. How are they impacting our natal planets? I'll introduce a little bit more about the upcoming Embody Astrology lunar events. And then I'll open it up for you guys for a Q&A. Now, we do have my sidekick in the Zoom right now, Jacqui Price. I think she changed her name to Sidekick Jacqui. She is going to be manning the chat for us. So if you guys have questions throughout this whole presentation, type them in. If Jacqui knows the answer, she will respond to you right away. If she does not know the answer to your question, or if it's more of a specialty question, she will send it to me and I will be able to see that when we get to the end Q&A. So throughout the whole thing, any questions, throw them in the chat. So let's talk about the Zodiac Wheel. This is a very basic representation of the Zodiac Wheel. What you can see are all of the zodiac glyphs on the outside. These are all of the constellations. And I often talk about the houses. So on the inside of the circle, you can see the numbers of the houses. When you first look at the Zodiac Wheel, you're going to see a bunch of symbols that you might have no idea what they mean. So this might be a good screen to take a screenshot of if you're still learning the glyphs for all the different zodiac signs. When we look at the Zodiac Wheel, we always start here on the left side. This would be considered the ascendant in a birth chart. We'll get there. But the zodiac starts with Aries. Aries starts our spring season, which starts off the zodiac year at the end of March. And when we read the zodiac, we always go counterclockwise. That took me a few times to remember because we're so used to reading clockwise. But anytime you want to see where a planet is heading, so we know that, let's just say Saturn is in Pisces and we know that he's about to move into Aries, we can find Saturn in Pisces. And if we want to know which direction he's headed, we go counterclockwise. Also on this basic zodiac wheel, you can see which signs are correlated to which houses. So this lays it out pretty simply for you. Aries is related to the first house. Taurus is related to the second house, so on and so forth. And if you notice, the signs go in the same order around the zodiac wheel, starting with Aries, as they do over here in the key. They start with Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer. This is the regular pattern. So once you're able to commit this to memory, all this gets easier. The website that I use to find natal charts is astro.com. Pretty simple website. When you get there, you're going to see something like this on the main page. If you've never pulled up your natal chart before, you are going to click on the one on the right that says Charts and Calculations. That's going to bring you to a second page where you will then choose Chart Drawing. When you get to this page, you're going to enter in all of your birth data. your first name, your gender, your birthday. If you don't know the time of your birth, you have to tell astro.com that it's unknown. There's a part here where you can say unknown, and then you add in your country and your birth town. Just for purposes of teaching, I entered in some random information and we got a random birth chart. So this is nobody that I know of, unless it was weirdly channeled to me. So here we can see the same that we were seeing in that first zodiac wheel. We have all of the constellations on the outside, but now we have all of these planets on the inside, some more glyphs that we have to memorize. So here on the right side, we have a key. You can see the signs that we saw in that last slide, and now all the planets are here as well. And this is when you can start playing astrology bingo. This is when you can start picking out, all right, we're going to look for the sun in this chart. We'll look at the key. We see that the sun is a circle with a dot. Where do we see that on this chart? It looks like it's right here. So we're matching glyphs. So this chart has the sun at 1 degree. That's what this number right next to it means. So the sun is at 1 degree of, what the heck is this sign? It looks like Leo. And these are a little bit different. They're not always matched. Different astrologers use slightly different glyphs. And actually there's like 5 different ways to draw Capricorn. So if you don't know what the symbol is, there's a good chance it's Capricorn. When we look at this chart, a lot of people want to know what their big 3 are. That's kind of like a new age astrology thing that's cool. So for this person, you would say that they are a Leo sun. Then we'd look for their moon. So we look for the glyph that looks like a moon, find it in the chart, that's over here. So they are a Sagittarius moon. And then everyone wants to know their rising sign. So that's when you would look at this thick black line towards the left of the chart. This black line represents the eastern horizon when you were born. So this person is a rising a rising Capricorn. So their big 3 would be sun in Leo, moon in Sagittarius, rising Capricorn. And you can apply the same to your chart. Now, what if you have no idea what time you were born? So here's the same chart that I just had pulled up. This is the exact same one on the right. And we're going to look at it as if this person did not know what time that they were born. What changed? What do you guys notice? I see that all of these pie piece lines now disappeared. And now I can see that the zodiac wheel had turned. When we knew this person's time of birth on the right side, it starts the chart with their ascendant at 6 degrees of Capricorn. And now when we don't know, the astro.com website will automatically put Aries in the first house slot, just like the traditional zodiac wheel. And this will also assume that this person was born at 12 o'clock noon. So when you don't know the time of your birth, you can still see where all of the planets were. You can still see all of these lines, how these planets are aspecting each other, how they're playing with each other in the sky. What you cannot see are the houses. So you notice on this chart on the left, there's no numbers on the inside, and that's okay. There are a couple other things that are different in this chart. I can see 1, 2, I was looking at this earlier. 2 planets for sure changed just a little bit. And this, I'm going to give you a few seconds to look for yourself. Which planets have different degrees on the right side versus the left side? I'm going to take a look at the chat and see if anyone finds them. So you can think about which planets move the fastest. Which is always moving into new signs. About every 2.5 days, this planet is in a new sign. Ah, Roxy, Diana, good job. You guys got it right off the bat. Yes, the moon. So if we look at the chart where we know this person's time of birth, the moon is at 22 degrees of Sagittarius. If we're assuming that this person was born at this day, astro.com says noon, the moon's at 18 degrees of Sagittarius. Now, in this case, it's not a big deal. You still know that the moon is in Sag. Awesome. But what if you pull up your chart and your moon, if you don't know the time of your birth, you pull up your chart, astro.com assumes you were born at noon, and the moon is at 29 degrees of Sagittarius. That's where I take a bit of astrology caution and I say we're going to use both. When we talk about your chart, we're going to talk about your emotions being both exploratory, like Sag, and also limited and concrete, like Capricorn. What I also noticed about this chart, which is something that actually caught my eye, look at the North Node, guys. This horseshoe shape, that's the North Node. When we know the time, it's at 12 degrees. When we don't, it goes to 13 degrees. So planets can move within a few minutes. This is why when I ask for people's birth information, if you don't exactly know the time of your birth, I would rather not guess because I don't want to get locked into, let's say I'm telling you that your North Node is in Leo when it's really in Cancer. Actually, I'm going to go back. So we're going to play a little bit more. We're going to play astrology bingo. So the most upcoming lunar event that we have right now, we have a full moon that's coming up on Saturday, February 24th, and this is happening at 5 degrees of Virgo. So I guess I'm testing you guys right now because I didn't put the chart, the key on this slide. So we're going to look for 5 degrees of Virgo in this person's chart. And either if you use the right side or the left side, actually, let's focus on the right side. So first, we're going to look for the glyph of Virgo. Does anyone know off the top of your head what that looks like? I was going to look at the chat, see if anyone's fast. Jess, M with her legs crossed. That's right. Yes. Virgo is the M with her legs crossed. Now, when I talk at you guys on Insight Timer, all you see is 5 degrees Virgo, 5 degrees Virgo. So now we're looking at the chart. So I see Virgo, and I see that she has Venus at 4 degrees, which is super interesting. So what that would show me is that the full moon is happening 1 degree away from her Venus sign. I'm assuming that this chart is a girl. It just feels feminine to me. So when I tell you guys that the moon is happening at 5 degrees of Virgo, I never even look to where this person's moon is in their chart. At that point, it doesn't matter. We're looking to see where 5 degrees of Virgo falls in this chart. So coming up on Saturday, the full moon at 5 degrees of Virgo, we can see that this is happening in this person's 8th house. So to get into more of these details, I might be talking way over your head at this point. This is a good time to shamelessly plug my Astrology 101 course available on Insight Timer so that you can have your own little key and you can start piecing these astrology Mad Libs together. So the full moon will be happening in this person's 8th house, conjunct their Venus, because Venus is at 4 degrees. So I would say that this is a culmination, a celebration of some sort of transformation in this person's life. And it's really shining a light on how they value this transformation in their life. Sweat, I saw your chat. Can you please point to where 5 degrees of Virgo is? Is it to the right or left of Venus? Great question. So I'm going to go way back to the first slide. We were at 0 degrees of Aries over here. And I let you know that the Zodiac Wheel works counterclockwise. So if we keep going counterclockwise, that would assume that this, where Cancer starts is 0, goes all the way to 30. Where Leo starts, this is 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Oops. And now where Virgo starts, we have 0. Here's 4, and then 5 would be this first little tick mark. So 5 would be 1 tick left of this Venus. That's a great question. So with this person, if we know the time of their birth, we can see that this is affecting their 8th house. Now let's pretend to the left side of the page, same person, don't know what time they were born. We know that the full moon is at 5 degrees of Virgo. So we're just going to go and find Virgo in the chart. And we can see here that it's still 1 degree away from their Venus. So that's still some sort of culmination in this person's values. And then you can take the deeper meaning of what the heck this actual full moon means and piece it all together, and you can get super complicated. Now, I saw that Jacqui asked in the chat, and she was way ahead of me. What if you don't have anything at 4 degrees of Virgo, 5 degrees of Virgo? So here's another random chart that I pulled up out of my head. This person does not know what time they were born. So you can see 12 o'clock is what is defaulted to. So we'll find Virgo in the chart, the M with her legs crossed, and there's nothing there. As an astrology beginner, I would advise you to say, okay, this full moon isn't impacting me personally. And I would just take a look at what the broad strokes are of this full moon. If you are a little bit more advanced, you can start to look, and this is where taking that Astrology 101 course would benefit you. If you know, let's break down Virgo. Virgo is an earth sign. Astro.com makes that easy. They put her as green, okay? So we know green is earth. And then just from memory, I know that Virgo is a mutable sign. So as an advanced person, I would look at those two other parts of the chart. So earth, what other earth signs are here? I'm going to look for green. I'm going to look for green. Okay, here's Capricorn. Capricorn is also an earth sign. And I see that we have Neptune here at 5 degrees. I'm going to keep going just to check. What's another earth sign? Looking for green. Here's Taurus. Taurus is an earth sign. So if we have 3 earth signs, that's how I remember 3 make a triangle. These would be trining. There's 3 earth signs in the chart. They make a triangle. We would know that the full moon at 5 degrees of Virgo is forming a trine to Neptune at 5 degrees of Capricorn. Okay, and I would even take this as a loose trine. I give about 5 degrees on either side as orb of reference. So the full moon at 5 degrees of Virgo would be loosely trining this person's north node. Trines are harmonious. This is a little bit advanced. We can also take the quality of the sign. Virgo is a mutable sign. So this is going to take a little bit more astrology research, but I know the next mutable sign at the end of the season, Sagittarius. Okay, we have Saturn at 9 degrees. That's within a 5-degree orb, right? 5 degrees of Virgo. We're looking for 5 of Sag, but we have 9. That would be considered a square. When signs are the same quality, when they're mutable, when they're fixed, when they're cardinal, they square each other. So now let's go the other way with this chart. We're going to look for the mutable sign that comes before Virgo, which I just know off the top of my head is Gemini. And here we go. We have another loose square at 9 degrees. So Chiron is squaring this full moon. And then we can look for opposition. What is directly across the sky, which would also be a mutable sign? We have Pisces, and this person has Jupiter at 3 degrees, which would be opposite of the full moon. So as an astrology beginner, and this is what I used to do too, I'd look at the chart, I'd say, okay, there's nothing at 5 degrees of Virgo. This full moon must not impact me. And at that point, that was fine. That's where I was at. But then I started diving further in, and now you can see this is trining your Neptune. This is trining your North Node. This is squaring your Saturn. This is squaring your Chiron. And this is opposing your Jupiter. So there's a lot going on once you take that next advanced step. What did I do here? Okay, so we're just going to play with one more. We're gonna stick with that 5 degrees of Virgo full moon that's coming up. And what we're going to look at here, this is a brand new chart, random person just typed in some numbers with the time of birth. So here we have Virgo. So I'm going to open up the chat. I'm going to let you guys tell me where this person is having the full moon, where in their chart is being affected by the full moon. And I see that Tam asked, what is squared? Thank you for asking that. So we first talked about trine, where we have 3 planets, so they make a triangle. When we use the quality, there are 4. There's 4 mutable planets, so they make a big square. Squares, 90-degree angles, they cause tension. They cause roadblocks. When it's a transiting planet, to me, it feels like the moon is adding tension to wherever it is squaring in your chart. So in this chart, maybe I didn't ask the question in a clear way. We're still pretending that we are looking for the upcoming lunar event, how it is impacting this new person's chart. We're just getting fresh eyes on a brand new chart. So we're still looking for 5 degrees of Virgo. So pretend that this is your best friend's chart and they want you as a basic astrologer to say, hey, what is this full moon doing for me? So we know that the full moon is at 5 degrees of Virgo. So in this chart, we're going to look for Virgo again. We know that she's Earth, so we can always look for green. And I gave you guys that key here again, so we can always double check. All right, Virgo is M with her legs crossed. So here we go up at the top. Chantel, beautiful. Chantel says 10th house. So when I look at this chart, I can see that this person's midheaven is at 3 degrees of Virgo, moving counterclockwise, 3, 4, 5. 5 degrees would be right in this person's 10th house. So if this were your chart, this full moon would be shining a light, culminating something in your legacy, how you leave your mark on the world. That's what the midheaven represents. And it's also happening in the 10th house, which has to do with how you limit yourself. What are you responsible for? What boundaries do you place on yourself? If you look up your chart the day of the full moon, on astro.com, they have this button over here on the right side where you can add the transits. So we're still using this last chart that we had where the full moon happens on their midheaven in the 10th house. And I'm going to pretend that we click this button with transits. What this brings up are all these green planets on the outside. And now because I did this transit chart this morning, the moon is not at 5 degrees of Virgo. So if you're looking up your chart on the day of the full moon, and actually within a few hours of the full moon, because the moon moves super fast, you can look at the transit chart and you can see at the same time, okay, the moon will be at 5 degrees of Virgo, so you have to think a little bit ahead. But you can also look at the rest of the planets and see what is impacting the rest of my chart. Wow, look at all this. Jacqui's been blabbing on and on and on about Pluto. I could see Pluto down here, and I know that the Sun and Mercury, Venus and Mars, they were all dancing with Pluto right here. Wowza, that's right near my moon. Maybe that's why I've been so emotional lately. But this doesn't give you an exact look at where the full moon is happening within your chart. So what you can do is you can pull up a chart for the full moon in Virgo, which is what I did. I went to astro.com. I plugged in all the information for this Saturday's full moon at 6:30 in the morning Central Time. And we can see that we have the moon at 5 degrees of Virgo, and the sun is opposing at 5 degrees of Pisces. Then you can look back and forth to your own natal chart, and you could play that astrology bingo that way. Get yourself really confused looking back and forth, which is a skill that you can develop. This is mostly how I read the charts. But if you want to make it a little bit easier on yourself, you can head back to astro.com, their homepage. And we always go to charts and calculations to make a new chart. But this time, instead of just making a chart drawing, we're going to select extended chart selection on the bottom. And this is going to allow us to use what's called a Sinistry chart. And now this is something that this might be like a scrappy way to do astrology. I'm a self-taught astrologer, so maybe other astrologers would scoff at doing it this way. I don't know. But what I like to do is to take a Sinistry chart, and I'll show you in the next slide what that is. And I'm going to apply this to I just called the chart test, but you'll take your horoscope for your name here on the top, and then your partner would be the chart that you've created for this upcoming full moon. You have to make sure that you select Sinistry Chart before it allows you to have this second chart available. And then you'll click the big green button, show the chart, and that is going to pretty much make this transit chart like we just showed, but specific to exactly the time that the full moon becomes full. So what you're looking at here is on the inside with all these blue planets, this is the birth chart of the person who I just had up on screen. Then you can always verify. It shows in red text. You're comparing with the Virgo full moon, and it's on the outside. So now we can see the outside red planets. That's what the sky is going to look like on Saturday, February 24th at 6:30 in the morning. And it shows you right here, just in case. So this is an easier way to take a look at, okay, what the heck is the full moon actually doing to my chart? It's right there. I can see it right with my own eyes. So boom, the full moon is at 5 of Virgo. Look at that's right on top of my midheaven. Let's look at everything else. This whole cluster down here with Pluto, what the heck's going on with that? When it comes to the synastry charts, it can be very difficult to see where all these lines are just because there's so much going on in the chart. So on the very bottom of that page, we have this key. And I reference this all the time. So if we want to take a look at all this activity down here, I want to see, all right, my moon, that's right, the blue moon, 7 degrees of Aquarius. Looks like Mars and Venus right now are really close to that. So let's look over here. We have 9 degrees and 8 degrees. This gets a little advanced, but I hope you're following along. If this is way over your head and you'd rather just have me tell you what's going on in your chart, allow me to help you by joining Embody Astrology Lunar Events. What this is Jacqui hosting one Zoom call per lunar event. So it would be set up very similar to what we did today. We'll meet a few days before each full moon and a few days before each new moon. We start every session with a dance because ecstatic dance and astrology go hand in hand, especially with Jacqui Mancuso. What we'll do on these Zoom calls is I will take you into a deep dive of the energy of each lunar event. When I talk on Insight Timer, I do broad strokes. Here on Embody Astrology Lunar Events, we're going to go deep into it. We're going to look at the ruler of the moon. We're going to look at all the aspects that are happening. And then I'm going to pull up 1 or 2 case studies per lunar event. So at this time of the call, if this were an Embody Astrology meeting, I would describe the full moon in Virgo, and then I would say, based on what you guys have told me, I can see that this person is really impacted by this full moon. I'd pull up charts side by side. Perhaps I'll use the synastry. I don't know yet. But then I'll show that person, this is exactly how this full moon and everything else going on in the sky, this is how it's impacting you. And now, even if you're not someone who is selected for a certain day, you'll still get to watch how I play astrology bingo and my brain goes back and forth and I look at all the stuff, and you'll be able to pick up how I work for others and you'll be able to apply it to your own chart. So if this is something that you're interested in, you can join this group through my Patreon page. I try to keep it simple, patreon.com/Jacqui Mancuso. When you hop on, you'll see right here, it says Embody Astrology Lunar Events. You can join us. The first meeting isn't until Thursday the 21st. If you want to join early just to support me, feel free, but I'm not going to have anything for you guys until our first meeting on the 21st, just as a heads up. All of our meetings for Embody Astrology Lunar Events will either be on Tuesdays or Thursdays, and they'll always be at 9 o'clock Central Time. So if you'd like to join, I will be blasting out emails to remind you guys. And when I say blast, that probably means 2. I'll be sending out emails to remind you guys that our first meeting is on March 21st. And we will be discussing the full moon lunar eclipse that is occurring on March 25th at 5 degrees of Libra. So for the meantime, what can you do? How can you participate in this before you're even there? You can apply to be selected as a case study. Help me help you, right? It's going to be super difficult for me to look at so many people's birth charts. So I created this simple form that you can fill out if you want to be selected as a case study. If you want to be a person in the background and just show up to Embody Astrology and watch me play with other people's charts, awesome. You don't have to be a case study. But if you want to, you can fill out this form. And for all of the upcoming lunar events, the question looks just like this. I show you, all right, the full moon is on March 25th. It's happening at 5 degrees of Libra. This meeting will be on Thursday, the 21st. Astrology bingo. Do you have any planets or points between 0 to 10 degrees of Libra? So just like we did in the very beginning, we're going to look for Libra in our chart. We're going to move counterclockwise. The very beginning, 0 of Libra, look for the first 10 degrees. If you have Mercury there, you'd select Mercury. If you have Pluto there, you'd select Pluto. Or if you have nothing, you got nothing. This form is available on Patreon. So if you guys are already in my Embody Astrology, it just posted right when we started this webinar. If you are not yet a Patreon member, it's in my link tree. So if Jacqui, if you could throw that in the chat, my link tree / Jacqui Mancuso. There it is again on the screen. I ask that you guys complete this by March 14th so that I can announce who all are going to be my case studies by March 15th. And again, reminders about this will come out in my email, but if you want to get a head start on this, it's in my link tree right now. Select it, it's right on top. I try to make it as easy as possible for people. So that concludes our webinar for today. I'm super excited to start this new journey with you. This is something brand new to me. I've never done anything like this, but I'm just so passionate about this. And every time I play with astrology, every time I talk about astrology, I just light up. So that tells me that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what I'm supposed to be sharing with you guys. If you've enjoyed today's session, if you'd like to offer an energy exchange in the form of a donation, I use PayPal. You can use my tag at Lakeside Living Healer. If you'd like to donate through Insight Timer, those are always appreciated. And at this time, I'm going to start looking at the questions that you guys have funneled through Jacqui. If you have more questions, feel free to put them in the main chat, and then Jacqui will share to me which questions I need to answer. So let me take a look. I see. All right. I already answered that question. If you have no planets in Virgo, then what? Let's see what else. What does mutable mean? That's a good question. So I briefed over that very quickly. In astrology, we have 3 modes or 3 qualities. So all signs either start a season, spring, summer, winter, autumn, or they're in the middle of the season, or they end the season. So we have cardinal signs that start. Aries starts spring, Cancer starts summer, so on and so forth. Fixed signs are in the middle. They sustain the season. Taurus is fixed. Leo is fixed in summer. They sustain. And then we have mutable. They're at the end of the season. They're ready to review the whole season and make changes before the next. So I hope that answers your question. We asked what squared is, and I talked about that. Okay, square with Neptune and Jupiter in Sag, and Saturn in Gemini. I don't know the 4th. That's something that, you know, I actually meant to put that in this webinar. I'm not perfect, sorry. I was going to give you guys my brief little, these are what all the houses are. So maybe that's something I can throw up on my link tree so you guys can get a quick idea. Or if you don't want to do the 2024 approach and just get real quick information, you could take my Astrology 101 course where I go through all of this step by step, and make your own notes, right? I'm a self-taught astrologer. I didn't just have one person teach me and I took all of their notes. It's very intuitive. I found that astrology is very intuitive. So if you have something going on in your 4th house and you don't know what that means, hop on Google, hop on Pinterest. Guys, Pinterest is great for astrology because it's a bunch of random people just throwing their opinions out there. So look up, what does the fourth house mean? Some people will focus on family. Some people will focus on your home. Some people focus on your mother, and just take what resonates and leave the rest. Let's see. Any other questions? Let's see. Jacqui says, Anique asked, can you define the MC, AC, IC, and DC and what we look at them for? Great question. So what Anique is asking about, let me share my screen and go back to a chart so I can show you guys there. I'm sorry for this hectic. Nope, I don't want that one. We'll do this. So Anique asked about the AC. We're looking at the crosshairs of the chart. We have the AC ascendant. On the bottom, we have the IC. We have the DC descendant on the right side. And on the top, we have the MC. So the AC ascendant, this is the constellation that was rising on the Eastern Hemisphere at the moment of your birth. If you don't know the time that you were born, then your chart will not include an ascendant, a descendant, an IC, or an MC. But this represents how you come out into the world. I have to tell my astrology story. I love this story. So the Zodiac Wheel itself holds a story. You begin your journey in the first house. You begin to know who I am. Aries energy. We've been talking a lot about this with the North Node in Aries. It's the self. Then you walk around, you go counterclockwise. You walk into your second house. You start to learn, okay, what tools do I have available to me? What resources can I pick up? You walk into the third house. You start to communicate with people. You start to interact with your siblings, your neighbors. Fourth house, you get a deeper relationship with your mother. You start to learn about your ancestry. Fifth house, you start to have some fun in your life. You start to create some stuff. You know, you keep going. Sixth house, you learn how to care for others. Seventh house, you learn how to connect and relate with others. Eighth house, you get intimate with others. Ninth house, you start to explore what's the meaning of all this. This all has to mean something more than what I was taught. 10th house, all right, I went too far. Let's limit it. Let's bring it back in. 11th house, then you go out and you find your communities. And then in the 12th house, you say, all right, I've done the whole journey. I've learned a lot of stuff. It's time to get rid of what I don't want to bring back with me into the first house. So I tell that story because the ascendant is a recurring theme in your life. It's the version of yourself that you're choosing to show on a day-to-day basis because of the whole cycle that you've been through. You've gained all your stuff, you've let go of all your stuff, and now this is me. This is who I am. So in this case, the ascendant is in Scorpio. So this person may be a pretty guarded person, but once you get deep down into them and you earn their trust, they'll let you way down into their cavern. They'll show you all their deep, dark sides. So if a lunar event was occurring on your ascendant, that could be, if it's a new moon, it could be like shedding a skin. Like, this is a new way that I want to show myself to the world. If it's a full moon on your ascendant, it's closing a cycle. Maybe I don't want to show this side of me anymore. Maybe I don't want to be this version of myself anymore. And the lunar event can highlight that. On the bottom, we have the IC. This is in Latin, it's called the Imum Coeli. It's the basement of your chart. This is your private life. This is your hidden life. This is where you go to retreat, let your hair down, where you don't have to perform for anybody. So lunar events occurring near the IC, the private part of your chart, that could be, if it's a new moon, it could be a new way of enjoying yourself by yourself, finding a new hobby that really makes you feel like you're safe and secure. Full moon on the IC, that could be closing a chapter of how often you had to retreat, the way that you would retreat and let your hair down. These are things that I can give a lot more details when it's the specific chart. Because right now when I'm looking at this chart, I don't feel a soul connected to it. And I'm just really noticing that in the way that I teach astrology. When I feel the soul, I get the story. This is just teaching, so it's very, very different. The descendant, this is on the western horizon of your chart. The descendant, how I perceive it, is this is the quality that you see very often in others that you don't necessarily see in yourself. We usually feel like our ascendant and we feel very opposite of our descendant. So lunar events here, a new moon might be that you're deciding to take on qualities that you keep seeing in everybody else that you haven't yet been able to see inside yourself. A full moon on the DC could be wrapping up how much you project onto other people. It might be saying, okay, I'm done with that. I'm done putting my stuff onto others. I'm going to choose to find it in myself. And the MC, this is your midheaven. Oh gosh, I forgot the Latin name. Medium coeli, I think. The MC represents, so if the IC is the most private part, the MC is the most public part. It's the part of yourself that it's like your public image, right? So you all know me as Jacqui Mancuso, the astrologer. This is people that know you on a grand scale. And this is also the legacy that you're leaving behind when you exit this earth plane. So a full moon on an MC could be wrapping up a way that you are personified to the world. A new moon, the same vein, can be a brand new way that you show yourself publicly, a new title, a new certification, something along those lines. Great question, Aniques. Let's see what else we have. Uranus, 9 degrees of Virgo in my 12th house. Chiron, 10 degrees of Pisces. Seems like a big time. Absolutely, Darlene. Absolutely. Roxy asked, my chart, I can pull up Bronx, New York, or I can pull up the hospital where I was born, and it has the long, slightly different than the lat. That would be longitude and latitude. And that's something that I've not experienced, so I'm not sure how to answer that question. How different is it? Because when I use the chart, when I use the town, the place of birth, my interpretation is that it's only for the time zone so that you get the correct ascendant. Because if you were born in Central Time and then you take that same day and time, but you put it as an Eastern state, your ascendant's going to be off. So I would look at the fast moving planets in your chart to see if there's any difference there. If the moon is different, Mercury, apparently we learned today that the North Node can be a little bit different. Jacqui asked, do you want me to pull mine up? For what reason, Jacqui? You can unmute if you want to just say it.
You were talking about wanting to be more personal with the chart you were looking at. So I was going to throw that out there if you needed it.
That's all good. I appreciate it. So that is everything that I had prepared for you guys. If you have extra questions about what the heck does it mean when you tell me that a moon is at this degree, feel free to ask them again in the chat. If you want to sign up for Embody Astrology Lunar Events, you can always head directly to my Patreon page, patreon.com/Jacqui Mancuso. All of my stuff is always in Linktree, so linktr.ee/Jacqui Mancuso. I ask that you guys fill out that form before March 14th because I'm going to announce all the upcoming case studies on March 15th. And then I'll send you guys the schedule. It's all created. I'm very proud of myself that I'm not super procrastinating on that. All these meetings are Tuesday or Thursday, a few days before the lunar event, so that you have time to learn about it and then choose how you're going to embody it. And then we'll meet, and my brain just went blank. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. I'm going to send us out with a dance. That's another thing that I love to do on Embody Astrology. We dance before, we dance after. It's just a fun way to shake everything out. So thank you guys for coming. Stay as long as you'd like. We'll dance. I'll answer any questions that are there when we come back. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope to see you all in Embody Astrology. I'll post this on YouTube for you guys to rewatch as often as you'd like. And feel free to send me any kind of messages whenever if you guys have questions. All right. Thank you so much for joining. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Jacqui.
Bye-bye.